He always sat near the exit. At coffee shops, it was the small table by the door, the one everyone else avoided because of the constant draft. In movie theaters, he'd pick the aisle seat in the very back row. At company meetings, he'd find a chair closest to the conference room entrance, even if it meant craning his neck to see the presentation. His friends used to joke about it, expecting a quick getaway. Alex, they'd tease. He'd just smile and shrugged, but it wasn't a joke. It was a strategy, a quiet comfort. He liked knowing he could leave. This habit started so long ago he could barely remember a time before it. Maybe it was that awful birthday party in 3rd grade, where he felt so out of place he hid in the bathroom until his mom came to pick him up. Or maybe it was the string of jobs after college, each one feeling like a cage he had to break out of after a year or two. Relationships, too. They were exciting at first, full of potential. But eventually, the walls would start to feel like they were closing in. The thought of forever felt less like a promise and more like a sentence. The exit was his safety valve, the silent assurance that he was never truly trapped. He could always slip away, back into the anonymity of the world, back to being just a man passing through. He built his life around this principle of His apartment was sparsely furnished, with nothing too heavy to move. His social circle was wide but shallow. He was friendly with everyone, but close to no one. He was the guy you'd have a great conversation with at a party, but you wouldn't think to call him for help moving a couch. And that's how he liked it. It was a life lived on the surface, free of deep roots that could hold him down. He saw people settling, Bujing Ousas getting married, and he felt a strange mix of pity and envy. They looked happy, sure, but they were stuck. They had closed their exits. He, on the other hand, was free. Or so he told himself. One rainy Tuesday, he ducked into his usual coffee shop, the one with the perfect little table by the door. But it was taken. A woman was sitting there, sketching in a small notebook, a half-empty mug of tea beside her. He felt a flash of irritation. That was his spot. He hesitated, almost turning to leave, but the rain was coming down harder now. Fine. He ordered his coffee and found another seat, one in the middle of the room, surrounded by strangers. It felt wrong. He was exposed, with no clear path out. He kept glancing towards the door, towards his spot, towards her. She seemed completely absorbed in her drawing, her brow furrowed in concentration. She had a smudge of charcoal on her cheek, and she kept tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. He found himself watching her, intrigued. She wasn't just occupying his space. She had transformed it. She had made it her own little world. After about an hour, she packed up her things, but instead of leaving, she walked over to the counter and started chatting with the barista. They were laughing, like old friends. She wasn't just a customer passing through. She belonged here. He started seeing her more often after that. Her name was Clara. Sometimes she'd be in his spot, sometimes not. He learned that she was a freelance illustrator who used the coffee shop as her mobile office. He started to feel a little less anxious about not getting his usual seat. He even found himself hoping she'd be there. Their interactions began with small nods, then shy smiles, and eventually, tentative conversations. He learned she loved old black and white movies and had a ridiculous obsession with collecting quirky salt and pepper shakers. He found himself telling her things he hadn't told anyone, about his dream of one day backpacking through South America, a plan he'd been about to do for the last 10 years. One afternoon, she looked up from her sketchbook and asked him, "Why do you always look like you're about to run a marathon?" He was taken aback. "What do you mean?" he asked. She gestured around the room. "You're always perched right on the edge of your seat, always looking at the door, like you're just waiting for the starting gun to go off." No one had ever called him out on it so directly. He didn't have a clever answer. So for the first time, he told the truth. "I guess I just like knowing I can leave if I want to." She tilted her head, considering his words. She didn't laugh or judge him. "Leave what?" she asked softly, and he didn't have an answer for that. What was he so desperate to escape from? A coffee shop. A conversation. A feeling, he realized, with a startling clarity, that he'd spent his whole life planning his escape from moments he had even fully lived yet. He asked her to movie that weekend. When they got to the theater, he automatically started walking towards the back row. "Where are you going?" she called out, already heading towards two perfect seats right in the center of the theater. He froze. His heart started beating a little faster. It was the middle of the row. Trapped. He'd have to shuffle past a dozen people if he needed to get out. But then he looked at her, standing there, waiting for him with a warm, expectant smile. And he thought, maybe for once, the best view wasn't of the exit. He took a deep breath and walked down the aisle, towards her, towards the center of the room. As the lights dimmed and the movie started, he felt her hand find his in the dark. It was a small, simple gesto, but for him, it was monumental. He wasn't thinking about the strangers on either side of him. He wasn't mapping his escape route. He was just there, in that moment, with her. Her presence was more comforting than any open door had ever been. Their relationship grew from there, one centered seat at a time. They went to crowded concerts, where they were lost in the middle of the audience. They sat on park benches that weren't near any particular path. He even let her redecorate his apartment, adding heavy bookshelves and a comfortable, oversized sofa that was definitely not easy to move. Each step was a tiny act of rebellion against his old self. Each moment was a choice to stay. It wasn't that the fear vanished overnight. There were still times when he'd feel that old, familiar panic rising in his chest, the urge to bolt. But now, instead of looking for the door, he'd look at her. He'd see the way she smiled when she told a bad joke, or the focused look she got when she was drawing, or the way she'd hold his hand, and the panic would subside. It was replaced by something else, something quieter and stronger, something that felt a lot like home. One day, they were back in that same coffee shop. They were sitting at a table in the corner, far from the entrance. It was raining outside, just like the day they first spoke. She was sketching him, and he was telling her about his day. He looked around the room, at the people coming and going, at the door he used to watch so intently. It was just a door now. It had lost its power, its siren song of escape. Clara looked up from her notebook. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, that same gentle curiosity in her eyes. He smiled, a real, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "I was just thinking," he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "I found a reason to stay." He wasn't a man who sat near the exit anymore. He was just a man, sitting across from the woman he loved, with no desire to be anywhere else in the world. He had finally learned that true freedom wasn't about having a way out. It was about finding something, or someone, worth staying for. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about life's little moments. See you next time.